The Rick and Bubba Show. The book is The Way Forward, Renewing the American Idea. The author, Paul Ryan, United States Representative for Wisconsin's 1st Congressional District, and he joins us now on the show. Paul, welcome to the program. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Well, you know what? We're fired up about this book, and I know your passion. Have heard you speak, and I think it is. America's at a crossroads right now. There's no doubt about that. Are we going to keep moving forward into a gigantic central government, a soft tyranny, socialistic type existence, very European friendly? Or are we going to turn back to the original intent of the role of the government, of the founders of the country? And if we're going to do the latter, how do we go about it? Does that pretty much sum the book up?
That pretty much sums the book up. You're a quick read. And what's different than this book is, because a lot of people will say that, what I'm trying to do is show how we can do it.
And that's the key.
I learned a few things being on the national ticket 2012. And we're going to have to win national elections. That means we're going to have to grow the conservative movement. It's not enough that we just talk to each other. We've got to go out and win converts without diluting our principles. In fact, I think if we apply our principles, the founding principles, to today's problems, we can show better solutions, better ideas, and communicate with people from all backgrounds, all walks of life, that, now that you see what big government in practice looks like, it's not working, it's not for you, and there's a better way forward. And so what I'm trying to do is do my part to create a conservative movement that's principled, inclusive, aspirational, and therefore appealing to a majority of Americans.
Representative Ryan, this is Bubba. Glad to have you on the show. It's an honor.
I got one question. Is it Roll Tide or Auburn?
You know what? We pull for Rick and Bubba.
Hey, that's right. That's right. And we're on in a lot of Southeastern Conference cities, so we're just ready to kick off something. Representative, let me ask you this, and kind of work through this. I know you said you went back and looked and broke down the election. What is something you learned from that look back before we go forward? What happened? What did you take out of that election?
Okay, I'd say one thing, there's structural problems that the Reince Priebus and the party are fixing. Don't have 23 primary debates where the networks pick the moderators like George Stephanopoulos. Have the party do that. Have the party be in charge of that. Number two, don't have your convention so late, because what happens is you can't get your general election money until the convention. So here's what happened. Mitt Romney comes out in May, no money, can't get his general election campaign up and running until third week in August. Meanwhile, the incumbent Obama pounded him all summer long to define it. That's a structural problem. Number two, make it a real choice election. You've got to take to the country a very clear choice. You've got to do a very good full throttle criticism of the left, the ideas underneath their policies, so that you can uncover their rhetoric for the empty promise that it is. But you've got to show people specifically how things would be done differently, so that the country gets to make the choice as to what kind of country we want to be. Because we're going to have a big choice election like that, like an 80 election, so that if and when we win that election, we actually have the majority, the ability, and the moral authority and the mandate to fix this country's problems. That, to me, is the real critical thing that ought to be done. And the last point I'd say is we've got to go out and work on winning converts to our cause.
Right.
We can't have an electoral college strategy with a margin of error of one state, which is basically what we had. We've got to be able to open the field back up. We are starting to have a very narrow grip on the electoral college, and the left has the upper hand. So we've got to go out and retell the story of first principles, conservatism, in a way that's appealing and attractive to a majority of Americans.
I think you hit the nail on the head. You mentioned some technical things as far as dates and times, and certainly that needs to be addressed. But when you talk about back to the Constitution, conservative, hardworking, not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country type approach, which
right.
Most of us conservatives wrap our arms around, that's a tough sell to the current microwave society of give me mine, I want mine, and if, in their mind, they've got a pretty good deal going. I got money coming in. I'm not working for it. Why should they change? That's a hard sale. I admit that's a hard sale.
It is a tough sell, but if we don't make the sale, we lose the country. And that's why I talk about the American idea. which is your life's better than that. It's bigger than that. You can do more than that, which is that the whole concept of the American idea is that the condition of your birth doesn't determine the outcome of your life. You can make it in this country. And the concept is that we are a self-governing people under the rule of law, and that there's no limits to what we can do with our lives and how we can make it better for our kids. And you have to put specifics behind that. You have to show what these policies look like. And you have to show that how we can build a healthier economy where there's more opportunity for people to make the most of their lives and to be happy and pursue happiness, however they define it for themselves, so long as they're not infringing upon another person's right to do the same. I also think people understand that we're losing our standing in the world, and that's going to make us a lot less safe in this day and age. So I think there are other issues that are really advantageous for us about keeping the country safe, having a secure border, being in charge of our own destiny internationally. That's a big deal. And the last point is, just as a budget guy, if we don't start getting our handle on our fiscal situation, we're going to lose it. We're going to give the next generation an inferior standard of living. We will have a debt crisis like Europe. The problem is we don't have anybody backing us up like Europe does. And so we've got to get on this, and therefore we have to have a breakout election. And in order to have a breakout election, which gives us the ability to do what we need to do to save the country, we've got to win converts to our cause, and that's why I wrote this book.
Do you think also there has to be another tier of this? And if you covered this part, I missed it because I have not read the whole book. I was reading kind of synopsis of it when it was sent to us. Is also, we can't forget, you've got to also energize and bring some passion to the people who should already be with you that are not inspired.
That's why I spent a good time talking about liberal progressivism, why it's wrong, and how conservatism, which is a classical liberal, a person who believes in the founding principles, demonstrate and show how these principles are just as relevant today as ever before. And talk about sort of the century-wide struggle we've had over a governing philosophy between conservatism and progressivism is how people describe it today, or liberalism. I think it's important to sort of re-equip conservatives with the tools and the arguments they need to defeat the soothing rhetoric of big government liberalism. And so I try to do that as well. So I go to the underpinnings of the philosophy that are providing these results we see, the kind of government we've got, and how it's really a government that doesn't respect our rights, that treats us all the same, that speaks to Americans as if they're stuck in some class, stuck in their current station in life, and that government's the best coping mechanism available.
Right.
And it's also a vision that crowds out our communities and our civil society, which makes us so much less together in our country. It's basically two visions. One is a society-centered vision where collaboration is the name of the day, the goal of the day, or a government-centered vision with coercion. And that's why, for conservatives, what I wanted to do is reacquaint people with these ideas and these arguments. And for discerning Democrats and centrists who need to be a part of this coalition, I try to explain why this is such a better philosophy and a better way forward with real results than the stuff we're getting. And the reason I'm fairly optimistic is we see what big government looks like now. Mitt Romney and I had a problem, guys, where we were campaigning against big government theory because Obama hadn't put his program in place yet. Obamacare and Dodd-Frank and all these other things were delayed until after the election.
Sure.
Now that we see them, we know they look nothing like the promise that was made. We know they look nothing like the rhetoric that was used to sell them. So big government in practice on the business end is a lot uglier up close and personal like we see it today, which gives us an opportunity as conservatives to get people to agree to go to a different way, to consent to let us go in a different direction.
Representative Ryan, let me ask you this too. Back to that election again, and I know we got a break here shortly, but there's been a lot of stories written about Mitt Romney and the last days before that election. And I know you're optimistic and you want to win, and you're probably having meetings during that time where people are giving you poll results, and you know, some of them may not be what you want to hear. But going into that election day, did you yourself think that you were going to win that night, or what did you think?
I was very cautiously optimistic. We thought before the hurricane we were going to win. Then the hurricane hit, and our polls went down again. We were underwater, no pun intended. But then we started coming back out of it. And as we were coming back out of it, we thought we were back on the rise, gravitating back toward where we were before the hurricane, which was in a winning position. And so it was literally, for us, a timing thing. Are we peaking at the right time, or is the election coming too soon? Tuesday night we'll know. And so we were cautiously optimistic. And our pollsters, who had the wrong turnout model, that's a technical thing, had it better than we thought it was. And the turnout, 23.8% of the people who turned out in the battleground states, people who hadn't voted in a presidential election before. Yeah. They beat us on turnout, and that's something we didn't predict.
Yeah, and I do like what you're saying, which I think has been wrong during McCain and to a degree with Romney, is this fear of actually taking on what's wrong with the vision of America of the opposing party right now, to dissect it. I don't know why we never said, if Obamacare is so wonderful, why can't you get the president to say anything about it in his bid for re-election? If it's great, I'd be throwing it out there every time. Hey, don't forget, I'm the Obamacare guy. And they hid from that like it was a cousin you were ashamed of.
That's right.
And I would have pointed at that and said, why won't they talk about it? They won't talk about it because they don't know what's going to happen.
Well, I think they were, and nobody wanted to hear it.
If it's so wonderful, why are they not putting that as part of their reelection campaign? You couldn't get them. You couldn't get them to mention it.
So whoever their nominee is going to be is going to represent a third Obama term. I don't think we can take another term like that, just for the debt, the economy, and the trajectory of things. So we have to very thoroughly and convincingly explain why liberal progressivism isn't the way to go.
We have to paint the picture of where we're going and what's going to happen. We have to do that.
Exactly. Ronald Reagan did it with great effect. We can do it again.
Yeah. Hey, thank you very much, Representative Paul Ryan, Wisconsin, checking in with us, was the vice presidential candidate in the last election with Romney. The book is called The Way Forward. Find out his vision for America, renewing the American idea, and it's available wherever books are sold. Thank you for being with us.
Hey, thanks, Rick. Thanks, Bubba.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we'll be right back.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.